Ever feel like you're pushing a boulder uphill? That's the feeling of forcing things in life. Relationships, careers, happiness. We hustle, we strive. Once Lord Buddha said, "True peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." This video dives into the Buddhist principle of non-force. It's about letting go, allowing life to unfold naturally. Imagine a river flowing effortlessly around obstacles. That's the power of non-force. We'll explore Buddhist teachings and Zen stories to learn the art of non-resistance. We'll discover how to embrace the flow of life with grace and acceptance. Forget the struggle. Here, we'll find a sense of ease and harmony that comes from aligning ourselves with the universe's natural rhythm. This journey isn't just about ideas. These are practical tools for everyday life. We'll learn 20 core Buddhist principles that illuminate the path of non-force. From impermanence to mindfulness, each principle is a guiding light toward a life of balance, patience, and inner peace. We'll release attachments, cultivate compassion, and trust in the natural unfolding of life. Remember, joy and contentment come not from forceful pursuit, but from gentle acceptance of the present moment. So, with open hearts and willing minds, let's begin. Embrace the wisdom of non-force and discover the profound peace that lies within. Lesson 1. Understand the power of non-force. Have you ever felt like you're white-knuckling life, pushing, striving, but nothing seems to budge? That's the trap of forcing things. Buddhism offers a different path, the power of non-force. Imagine yourself on a river. You don't fight the current, you flow with it. That's the essence of non-force. It's about letting go, trusting the natural rhythm of life. So, what exactly is non-force? It's a core Buddhist principle. It means ditching the pressure and control, and instead embracing what comes our way with an open mind. Think of it as gentle acceptance. Buddha taught the middle way. Not too forceful, not totally passive. It's about finding the sweet spot, taking action that aligns with the natural order of things. Here's the key. This doesn't mean becoming a couch potato. It's about being present and mindful. For example, when we meditate, we don't force our thoughts to be quiet. We simply observe them, letting them come and go like clouds. This awareness brings inner peace. We stop reacting impulsively and navigate life's ups and downs with grace. Non-force is about trust, trusting that some things are out of our control. It's not giving up, but accepting what is. In short, non-force is a mindful, patient approach to life. It's about finding harmony and balance, letting things unfold naturally while keeping your inner peace. This is the foundation for a deeper journey, a path guided by wisdom and compassion, free from the chains of force. Lesson 2. The middle way. Ever feel like life's a pendulum swinging you between extremes? 1 minute, indulging in every treat. The next, punishing yourself at the gym. That's why Buddha taught the middle way. Think of it as the Goldilocks zone of life. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. Before his awakening, Buddha himself tried both extremes, luxury as a prince, then harsh self-denial. Neither brought him peace. The middle way is the sweet spot in between. It's not about being lazy or a pushover. It's about balance for your body, mind, and spirit. So how do we find this balance? Body, take care of yourself, but don't obsess over every calorie. Enjoy life, but don't neglect your health. Mind, find that even keel. Meditation helps. Respond to life's curveballs with calmness, not panic. Spirit, be disciplined in your spiritual practice, but don't become a fanatic. Find a consistent rhythm of meditation, good deeds, and learning, but don't be rigid. This middle way spills over into everything we do, including relationships. Be kind and understanding, but don't be a doormat. Compassionate communication builds strong connections. Work. Be diligent but avoid workaholic burnout. Find that healthy balance between giving your all and having a life. Desires. It's okay to want things, but don't let them control you. Practice letting go. That's where true freedom lies. The middle way goes hand in hand with non-force. You don't force things. You don't give up completely. You find that sweet spot, that balanced flow that respects life's natural rhythm. This isn't some impossible ideal. It's a practical guide to living a balanced, harmonious life. It's about navigating life's complexities with wisdom and compassion, avoiding the drama of extremes. Embrace the middle way and create a foundation for a peaceful, fulfilling life, living in tune with the natural rhythm of existence. Lesson 3. Everything changes. Embrace it, impermanence. Life's a river, ever flowing, never the same from one moment to the next. That's impermanence, a core Buddhist teaching. Nothing stays still, not even us. It applies to everything, from tiny atoms to galaxies, even your feelings and the people you love. Buddha said, understanding this is key to inner peace. When you know things are temporary, you let go of clinging too tightly. That's where a lot of our suffering comes from, wanting things to stay the same. Here's how impermanence helps us practice non-force. Accept the flow. Change is inevitable, so stop fighting it. Embrace the new. Being flexible opens you up to amazing experiences. Let go lightly. We get attached to people, things, even ideas. But clinging to impermanent things only leads to stress. Learn to let go with grace, and life becomes less stressful, less suffering, more peace. Go with the flow, find peace. We suffer because we resist change and try to control everything. When you accept impermanence, you suffer less. Be present now. Knowing things are fleeting makes you appreciate each moment. Stop forcing things based on past regrets or future worries. Be present. Be here. Now, compassion for all. Everyone experiences change and loss. Realizing that fosters compassion and kindness. Connect with others. Treat them well. How to embrace impermanence. Mindful meditation. See how your thoughts and feelings constantly change. It helps you understand impermanence within yourself. Reflect on change. Think about how life changes. Write in a journal or simply watch the seasons. Gratitude practice. Be thankful for what you have now. Focus on the beauty of the present, not what's gone or what's coming. Impermanence isn't scary. It's a call to live more mindfully and with compassion. Appreciate the precious, fleeting moments of life. By letting go of the need to force things, you'll find more peace and harmony. Lesson 4. Interconnectedness. Ever feel like you're an island going it alone? Buddhism teaches interconnectedness, the idea that everything is linked. Imagine a spider web. That's how we're all connected. Nothing exists in isolation. A tree needs sunlight, water, even tiny bugs to thrive. It's all part of a giant system. This concept, called pratyasamutpada, big word but cool idea, has a huge impact on how we live. Every action matters. We're all ripples in a pond. Our choices affect others, the environment, and the whole world. This awareness makes us more responsible and compassionate. Beyond me, myself, and I. We're not lone wolves. Understanding this helps us ditch selfishness. When we see that everyone's well-being is connected, empathy and compassion bloom, a dose of humility. Life's a complex web. Our successes aren't just because we're awesome, though we are. They involve countless others who helped us along the way. Let go of control. Not everything is in our hands. Forcing things often leads to frustration. Interconnectedness teaches us to trust the flow of life and focus on what we can control. Teamwork makes the dream work. Knowing we're connected fosters cooperation. We see the value of working together for common goals. Together, we can make a real difference. How does this connect to non-force? Forcing outcomes ignores the complex web of causes and conditions that make things happen. Instead, we act with awareness and mindfulness, aligning ourselves with the natural flow of things. For example, at work. We don't just push a project through with brute force, we consider the team, resources, and other factors. Working harmoniously leads to better results. In relationships, interconnectedness helps us approach conflict with empathy, seeing things from the other person's perspective. Harmony comes from mutual understanding, not forcing our will. Pratyasamutpada teaches us that, continue in Lesson 5, we're all part of something bigger. Let's act with mindfulness, compassion, and humility, embracing the beautiful web of life. By doing this, we can navigate life with balance and harmony, leaving the forceful struggles behind. Lesson 5. Suffering, it's real, but we can manage it. Life can feel pretty rough sometimes, right? That's dukkha, a core concept in Buddhism. It's not just physical pain, but also the general dissatisfaction that comes with being human. Buddha taught that life is like a roller coaster. Ups and downs are inevitable. Clinging too tightly to things, resisting change, or misunderstanding reality all lead to suffering. This is the first noble truth in Buddhism. Suffering exists. How does dukkha connect to non-forcing things? Facing the facts. The first step to feeling better is admitting things aren't always perfect. When we see the reality of suffering, we can move beyond it. This opens the door to a happier, more peaceful life. Letting go of what we can't control. Life changes. Clinging to the way things should be only leads to frustration. By embracing impermanence and letting go, we suffer less and find more peace, even when things get bumpy. Craving less, enjoying more. Buddha said that craving for things to be different is a major cause of suffering. The gap between what we want and what is creates stress. By letting go of those cravings and practicing non-attachment, we suffer less and enjoy life more. Compassion is key. Knowing we suffer helps us understand when others do too. This empathy fuels compassion, the urge to help others avoid suffering. By responding with kindness, we create a more peaceful world for everyone. Mindfulness matters. Paying attention to our thoughts and feelings without getting caught up in them is key. Mindfulness helps us see suffering coming and respond skillfully instead of reacting impulsively. This reduces the intensity of suffering and creates more inner balance. So, how do we deal with dukkha? Accept reality. Life isn't always sunshine and rainbows. Accept that and focus on living in the present moment. Let go of attachments. Don't cling to things that cause you suffering. True happiness comes from within, not from external stuff. Gain wisdom. Reflect on the changing nature of life. Understanding how suffering arises and how to stop it is key. Be compassionate. Help yourself and others. Kindness is contagious, creating a ripple effect of peace. Address the root causes. Dig deep and find what's really causing your suffering. By dealing with those root causes, you can create lasting peace. We may not eliminate all suffering, but by practicing non-attachment, compassion, and wisdom, we can reduce it and find greater peace and fulfillment. Non-force becomes our guiding light on the path to a happier, more meaningful life. Lesson 6. Non-attachment. Ever feel stuck in your own head? Buddhism teaches anatta, the idea that there's no fixed, permanent self. Think of it like a flowing river, constantly changing. Forget the idea of a separate, unchanging you. Our sense of self is a story we tell ourselves, based on experiences and what we've been told. How does anatta connect to non-forcing things? chilling out the ego. We often suffer because we cling too tightly to our self-image, roles and possessions. Anatta reminds us that this is all temporary. Let go of that tight grip and experience more freedom and ease. Going with the flow, everything changes, including how we see ourselves. When we understand this, we stop forcing things to fit some ideal version of us. Instead, we flow with life's ups and downs, more gracefully, less suffering, more peace. Clinging to the illusion of a permanent self leads to suffering. We resist change and try to control everything. Anatta helps us let go by embracing the truth of impermanence. This breaks us free from the cycle of suffering. We're all connected. Anatta highlights that we're all interconnected. There's no separate me. This understanding fosters compassion and empathy. We realize everyone experiences joy and sorrow, and we're all in this together. Mindful moments. Non-attachment involves being aware of our attachments in each moment. We observe our thoughts, feelings, and desires without judgment. This self-awareness shows us how attachment creates suffering, and we can choose a path of non-forcing things. How to cultivate non-attachment. Let go of stuff. Happiness doesn't come from things. Detachment from material possessions allows you to see that. Who am I, really? Let go of fixed ideas about who you are. We're all constantly evolving. Ups and downs happen. Don't get too hung up on pleasure or pain, success or failure. Lesson 7. Mindfulness. Ever feel like you're on autopilot? Buddhism teaches mindfulness, the art of being truly present. It's not about zoning out, but paying attention to what's happening right now, without judgment. Buddha saw mindfulness as the key to wisdom, compassion, and inner peace. When you train your mind to be present, you break free from the cycle of knee-jerk reactions and bad habits that cause suffering. How mindfulness connects to non-forcing things. Focus on now. Mindfulness means being present in this moment, not stuck in the past or worried about the future. When you're truly here, you can respond to life's challenges with clarity and wisdom instead of just reacting out of habit. Observe without judgment. Mindfulness is about observing your thoughts, feelings, and sensations without criticism. Don't label things as good or bad, just acknowledge them and let them come and go without getting hooked. Finding inner balance. Through mindfulness, you develop equanimity, a balanced state of mind that helps you stay calm during life's ups and downs. By observing the ever-changing nature of your experiences, you cultivate inner peace that doesn't depend on what's happening around you. Stop, breathe, choose. Mindfulness helps you interrupt automatic reactions that lead to suffering. By becoming aware of your thoughts and emotions, you create space between an event and your response. This allows you to choose a wise and compassionate reaction instead of acting on autopilot. See things clearly. The more mindful you are, the deeper your understanding of reality and the causes of suffering. By observing the impermanent and unsatisfying nature of experiences, you gain insight into the truths of life and how to stop suffering. How to cultivate mindfulness. Meditation matters. Set aside time for meditation practices like focusing on your breath, body scans, or loving kindness meditation. This trains your mind to be present. Everyday mindfulness. Bring mindfulness into everything you do: eating, walking, washing dishes. Pay attention to the sensations, thoughts, and emotions that arise in each moment. Reflect and learn. Take time to reflect on your experiences with mindfulness. Notice patterns in your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. This helps you understand yourself better. Mindfulness in action. Use mindfulness in tough situations. Bring awareness and compassion to challenging moments and respond skillfully instead of reacting out of habit. By cultivating mindfulness, you develop the ability to live with greater presence, clarity, and compassion. It allows you to let go of the need to control things and embrace life with openness and acceptance. The deeper your mindfulness practice, the more peace and freedom you'll discover simply by being truly present in each moment. Lesson 8. Equanimity. Life's a roller coaster, right? Ups and downs, joys and sorrows. Equanimity is a Buddhist concept that helps you stay calm amidst it all. It's about finding inner balance no matter what's happening around you. Buddha taught that equanimity is key to true peace. When you can face each moment with a steady mind, you're not tossed around by your emotions. How equanimity connects to non-forcing things. Steady in the storm. Life changes constantly, but with equanimity, you can stay grounded. Knowing everything is impermanent, you can meet both joy and sorrow with a calm heart. They'll all pass eventually. Letting go of outcomes. Don't get too hung up on getting what you want. Equanimity involves letting go of attachment to specific results. Accept what arises with grace and acceptance. Don't try to force things to be different. Compassionate detachment. Equanimity isn't about being cold or uncaring. It's about compassionate detachment. You can feel empathy for others' suffering without being overwhelmed by it. You can be kind and helpful, but you don't have to fix their problems. Ups and downs. Equanimity helps you stay balanced when things are good or bad. Don't get carried away by success, and don't get crushed by failure. Both are temporary. Spacious awareness. Imagine your mind as a big open space. With equanimity, you can observe your thoughts and feelings clearly without getting caught up in them. They come and go, and you watch them with detachment and understanding. How to cultivate equanimity, mindfulness matters. Meditation helps you observe your experiences with equanimity. Notice how thoughts, emotions, and sensations arise and pass away without getting hooked on them. Compassion is key. Cultivating compassion for yourself and others softens your reactions and helps you stay balanced in the face of suffering. Reflect and learn. Think about the impermanent and interconnected nature of life. Understand the causes of suffering and how to stop it. The Four Noble Truths. Be kind to yourself. Practice self-compassion. We all make mistakes. That's part of life. Accept yourself with kindness, knowing you're always learning and growing. By cultivating equanimity, you develop a deep sense of peace and stability that goes beyond life's ups and downs. You let go of the need to control things and respond to life with balance, acceptance, and compassion. The deeper your equanimity, the more freedom you will experience, and peace. You'll discover it simply by being at ease with whatever arises in each moment. Lesson 9. Loving kindness means sending love everywhere. Imagine a world filled with kindness for everyone. That's the power of loving kindness, a core Buddhist practice. It's about sending out unconditional love, friendliness, and goodwill to all beings, yes, even the tough ones. Loving kindness isn't just about warm fuzzies, though. Here's how it connects to non-forcing things. Love for all. Loving kindness extends to everyone without exception. It's about recognizing the worth and dignity of every living thing, no matter their story. By cultivating this, we break down walls and feel a sense of oneness with all life. Inner peace, outer joy. When we practice loving kindness, it doesn't just benefit others, it transforms us too. Sending out love and kindness creates inner peace, happiness, and fulfillment. Healing through kindness. Loving kindness is a powerful antidote to suffering. When we offer love and compassion to those who are hurting, we create connection and support that eases their pain and brings comfort. By cultivating this, we contribute to the well-being of all. Kindness is contagious. Loving kindness is a gift that keeps on giving. When we offer goodwill and kindness to others, it creates a ripple effect of positivity that uplifts everyone. It makes the world a more compassionate and harmonious place. Wishing well. Loving kindness involves actively wishing well for others, both in meditation and throughout the day. We cultivate thoughts and feelings of love, compassion, and goodwill for ourselves and all beings, opening our hearts with warmth. How to cultivate loving kindness. Meditation matters. Loving kindness meditation helps you develop feelings of love, compassion, and goodwill toward yourself and others. It's a practice session for your heart. Kindness in action. Put love into action through acts of kindness and generosity. These can be simple gestures of care or bigger acts of service. Every bit counts. Speak with kindness. Choose your words wisely. Use kind and encouraging language, avoiding gossip, criticism, or harshness that could cause hurt. Listen with love. Be a compassionate listener. Offer empathy and understanding, and be a safe space for those who are suffering or need support. By cultivating loving kindness, we choose to respond to the world with love, kindness, and compassion instead of forcing things or trying to control situations. It opens our hearts to the interconnectedness of all beings and inspires us to live with more generosity, empathy, and care. The deeper this practice goes, the more harmony, happiness, and well-being we create for ourselves and the world around us. Lesson 10. Compassion means feeling for others. Life can be tough, right? We all experience pain and struggle. Compassion is a core Buddhist teaching. It's about wanting others to be free from suffering and actively helping them find relief. Think of it as your heart reaching out to someone in need. Buddha saw compassion as key to wisdom and a deeper understanding of life. By cultivating compassion, we not only help others, but also transform ourselves, finding greater inner peace and fulfillment. Here's how compassion connects to non-forcing things. Seeing their pain. Compassion starts with truly understanding the suffering of others. When we recognize that everyone experiences challenges and we can relate to their struggles, our hearts naturally open with compassion. Taking action. Compassion isn't just feeling sorry for someone, it's a driving force that motivates us to take action to help alleviate suffering. This could be acts of kindness, service, or even advocating for change. It's about putting our compassion into practice. Compassion for all. True compassion doesn't judge or discriminate. It extends to everyone, no matter who they are or what they've done. By cultivating this kind of open-heartedness, we break down barriers and connect with all living beings. Be kind to yourself. Compassion starts at home. When we extend kindness, the text cuts off here. Feel free to provide the rest. Lesson 11. Right intention. Ever feel like you're on autopilot, just going through the motions? Buddhism teaches us about the Noble Eightfold Path, a guide for living a wise, ethical, and mentally healthy life. One key part is right intention, which is all about setting wholesome goals and attitudes that help you grow spiritually and break free from suffering. Here's how right intention connects to non-forcing things. Intentions matter, right? Right intention means aligning your goals with good principles like non-harming, kindness, and non-violence. It's about wanting what's best for yourself and others, and avoiding intentions that cause pain or suffering. Letting go of cravings. Right intention includes letting go of desires and attachments that make you suffer. It's about being content with what you have, rather than constantly chasing the next big thing for happiness. Kindness within and without right intention involves wanting kindness and compassion for yourself and everyone else. It's about wishing well for all beings and actively trying to ease their suffering with kind words, actions, and thoughts. No room for hate. Right intention means dropping intentions rooted in anger, hatred, or dislike. Instead, cultivate goodwill and friendliness towards all, even those you disagree with. Aligned with wisdom. Right intention goes hand in hand with wisdom, understanding the true nature of reality. It's about setting goals that reflect impermanence, interconnectedness, and the causes of suffering as taught by Buddha. Here's how to cultivate right intention. Reflect on your why. Take time to think about your intentions, motivations, and attitudes. Be mindful of where your goals are coming from. Be a good person. Develop good qualities like honesty, integrity, and compassion. Align your goals with ethical behavior. Spread the love practice, cultivating loving kindness and compassion for yourself and others. Loving kindness meditation is a great tool for this. Spot the bad seeds. Learn to recognize and let go of intentions rooted in negativity like greed, hatred, or delusion. Instead, choose goals that promote peace, happiness, and well-being. By cultivating right intention, you choose to focus on wholesome intentions and attitudes that lead to greater peace, happiness, and well-being for yourself and others. It's the foundation for good behavior and mental development on your path to freedom from suffering. The deeper your right intention, the closer you get to profound transformation and awakening. Lesson 12. Putting in the right effort. Life throws curveballs, right? Sometimes we just want to give up. But Buddhism teaches us the Noble Eightfold Path, a guide to navigate challenges and find true happiness. One key part is right effort, which is about putting in the work to grow and overcome negativity without forcing things. Here's how right effort connects to non-forcing things. Finding the balance. Right effort means finding the sweet spot between pushing too hard and letting things slide. It's not about being lazy or a workaholic. By putting in mindful effort, we create the space for growth without getting obsessed with results. Growing the good stuff. Right effort involves cultivating positive qualities like mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. Through practice and reflection, we strengthen these inner strengths, leading to greater well-being for ourselves and others. Letting go of the bad stuff. Right effort also means tackling negativity like greed, hatred, anger, and ignorance. By being mindful of these tendencies, we can make a conscious choice to let them go, cultivating more inner peace and freedom. Persistence is key. Right effort requires sticking with it even when things get tough. It's about staying committed to the path, even when progress feels slow. Over time, consistent effort cultivates the qualities that lead to a deeper understanding of life. Focus on the journey. Right effort isn't about forcing a specific outcome. It's about trusting the process, the power of compassion. When we extend understanding to ourselves, even when we mess up, it creates a foundation for genuine compassion toward others. Accepting yourself allows you to accept others with more empathy, creating a ripple effect of kindness. Compassion has the power to transform both the giver and the receiver. When we act with compassion, we cultivate qualities like generosity, patience, and forgiveness within ourselves, leading to greater inner peace and happiness. At the same time, our acts of kindness inspire others to be compassionate too, creating a ripple effect of good in the world. Here's how to cultivate compassion. Develop empathy. Practices like loving kindness meditation can help you develop empathy. Here, you cultivate feelings of love and compassion, starting with yourself and then extending them outward. Acts of kindness. Put compassion into action. Be kind and generous to others, whether through small gestures or bigger acts of service. Every bit counts. Forgive yourself and others. Holding on to anger and resentment only hurts you. Practice forgiveness, both for yourself and others. Let go and move forward with a lighter heart. Fight for what's right. Compassion motivates us to advocate for justice and equality for all. Support causes you believe in and work toward creating a more compassionate society. By cultivating compassion, we choose to respond to suffering with kindness, understanding, and support, instead of forcing things or trying to fix problems. It opens our hearts to the interconnectedness of all beings and inspires us to live with greater wisdom, kindness, and integrity. The deeper our compassion, the more we contribute to alleviating suffering in the world, creating conditions for greater peace and happiness for all. Right effort, focusing on the journey of self-improvement. The results will come naturally as you cultivate these positive qualities. Here's how to cultivate right effort. Be mindful. Meditation, reflection, and daily mindfulness practices can help you become more aware of your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Take wise action. Act with integrity and wisdom in how you interact with yourself and others. Cultivate positive qualities and avoid harmful actions. Self-reflection is key. Be honest with yourself. Reflect on your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, identifying negative patterns and working to transform them. Find a guide. Seek guidance from wise teachers, mentors, or spiritual friends who can offer support and encouragement on your path. By cultivating right effort, we choose to put in mindful effort without forcing things or trying to control situations. It's the dedicated work of developing qualities that lead to freedom from suffering and a path to greater peace, happiness, and well-being for ourselves and all beings. The deeper your right effort, the closer you get to profound transformation and liberation. Lesson 13. Right action. Ever feel lost about what to do in a tricky situation? The Noble Eightfold Path in Buddhism is a roadmap for living an ethical and fulfilling life. One key part is right action, which is all about making choices that are kind, honest, and considerate. Here's how right action connects to non-forcing things. Do no harm. Right action means avoiding anything that hurts yourself or others. It's about treating all beings with respect, kindness, and compassion, cultivating a deep appreciation for life. Honesty is key. Right action involves being truthful and honest in your words and actions. It's about building trust and integrity while avoiding lies, cheating, or manipulation. Respect what's not yours. Right action means respecting other people's belongings. Don't steal, cheat, or take advantage of others for your own gain. Instead, cultivate generosity and respect for what others have. Healthy relationships. Right action includes being responsible in your relationships. It's about honesty, respect, and avoiding harmful sexual behavior, such as adultery or exploitation. Consuming wisely. Right action involves being mindful of how your consumption habits impact yourself, others, and the environment. It's about living simply, sustainably, and avoiding wastefulness or overindulgence. Here's how to cultivate right action. Be mindful. Pay attention to your actions, speech, and thoughts. Mindfulness helps you make conscious choices that align with right action. Think before you act. Consider the ethical implications of your choices and how they might affect you and others. Be a good person. Develop good qualities like kindness, compassion, honesty, and generosity. These values will guide your actions toward what's right. Practice non-violence. Engage in practices that promote non-violence and compassion, like loving-kindness meditation or acts of service. By cultivating right action, you choose to live ethically and responsibly, considering the well-being of all beings. It's the foundation for a life of integrity, compassion, and harmony, leading to greater peace, happiness, and well-being for yourself and everyone around you. The deeper your right action, the closer you get to profound transformation and awakening. Lesson 14. Acceptance, finding peace. Through acceptance, life throws a lot at us, right? Good times, bad times, and everything in between. Buddhism teaches us a powerful concept called acceptance, which is about acknowledging things as they are, without judgment or resistance. It's about rolling with the punches and finding peace in the present moment. Here's how acceptance connects to non-forcing things. Taking life as it is. Acceptance means fully embracing the present moment with all its joys, sorrows, challenges, and uncertainties. It's about letting go of the idea that things should be different and finding peace and contentment no matter what life throws your way. Going with the flow. Acceptance involves letting go of resistance to what's happening now. It's about surrendering to the flow of life and allowing things to unfold naturally without trying to force or control the outcome. Staying balanced. Acceptance is closely linked to equanimity, which is a balanced and even mind. It's about staying calm and composed through life's ups and downs. Lesson 14. Acceptance, finding peace. Through acceptance, life has its ups and downs, right? Acceptance means not getting overly excited by good things or crushed by bad things. Here's how acceptance connects to non-forcing things. Embracing change. Acceptance involves understanding that everything changes, nothing stays the same forever. It's about letting go of the need for things to be a certain way and appreciating the beauty and impermanence of life. Letting go of desires. Acceptance is rooted in non-attachment. Holding on to desires and expectations only leads to suffering. It's about letting go of the past and the future and finding freedom by being present in the here and now. Here's how to cultivate acceptance. Be mindful. Mindfulness practice helps you observe your thoughts, emotions, and sensations without judgment. It allows you to accept them as they are. Radical self-acceptance. Embrace yourself exactly as you are, flaws and all. When we accept ourselves, we extend that same loving acceptance to others. Gratitude is key. Cultivate gratitude for both the good and the bad in your life. Find contentment in the present moment, no matter what. Let go of control. Release the need to control everything. Trust that things will unfold as they should. By cultivating acceptance, you choose to embrace life as it is, with all its imperfections and uncertainties. It's the gateway to inner peace, contentment, and freedom. Acceptance allows you to live with greater ease and openness, responding to life with wisdom and compassion. The deeper your acceptance, the closer you get to profound transformation and liberation from suffering. Lesson 15. Trust in the process, letting go and trusting the journey. Life can be unpredictable, right? Sometimes the future feels like a fog. But Buddhism teaches us a powerful concept called trust in the process, which is about having faith that things unfold as they should, even when we can't see the way ahead. Here's how trust in the process connects to non-forcing things. Embracing the unknown. Trusting the process means accepting that life is uncertain and things happen in their own time. It's about letting go of the need to know and control everything while embracing the mystery and surprises of life's journey. Faith in the path. Trusting the process is rooted in faith in the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha. It's about believing that practices like mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom lead to greater peace, happiness, and freedom. Change is constant. Trusting the process involves embracing the impermanent nature of life. Things change, and that's okay. It's about letting go of attachment to specific outcomes and trusting that every experience, good or bad, can help us grow. Developing patience. Trusting the process is closely linked to patience. Challenges are temporary. With patience and perseverance, we can navigate them with grace and strength, freedom in letting go. Trusting the process leads to a sense of freedom that comes from surrendering control. It's about letting go of the need to manipulate situations and trusting the wisdom of life itself. Here's how to cultivate trust in the process. Be mindful. Mindfulness allows you to observe life's flow with curiosity and openness, trusting that things are unfolding as they should. Let go of attachments. Release the need for specific outcomes. Trust that whatever happens is ultimately for your highest good and spiritual growth. Impermanence is real. Reflect on the impermanent nature of all things. Change is inevitable and a necessary part of life. Surrender to now. Surrender to the present moment with trust and openness. Everything you need is available to you right now. By cultivating trust in the process, you choose to surrender to the flow of life with trust and openness, rather than forcing things or controlling situations. It's the gateway to greater peace, freedom, and happiness, allowing you to live with more ease and joy while responding to life with wisdom and compassion. The deeper your trust in the process, the closer you get to profound transformation and liberation from suffering. Lesson 16. The power of patience. Life throws curveballs, right? Things don't always go according to plan, but Buddhism teaches us a powerful concept called patience, which is about staying calm and composed when things get tough, without frustration or impatience. Here's how patience connects to non-forcing things. Riding the waves. Patience involves enduring discomfort and challenges without resisting or reacting negatively. It's about staying present with whatever life throws your way, good or bad, and trusting that things will unfold in their own time. Bouncing back stronger. Patience builds resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks with grace and strength. It's about recognizing that challenges are part of life and that they can be opportunities to learn and grow. Embracing imperfection. Patience involves accepting that everyone, including ourselves, makes mistakes. It's about letting go of the need for perfection and embracing the humanity and fallibility that make us all unique. Responding wisely. Patience involves non-reactivity. Instead of reacting impulsively, it's about pausing and choosing a mindful, compassionate response to any situation. Finding inner calm. Patience leads to inner peace. It's about finding calm even when life throws storms your way. This inner tranquility doesn't depend on external circumstances. Here's how to cultivate patience. Be mindful. Mindfulness practice allows you to observe your thoughts, emotions, and reactions with patience and non-reactivity. Let go of control. Release attachment to specific outcomes. Accept the natural flow of life with patience. Lesson 17. Letting go, the key to freedom. We all want to be happy, right? But sometimes we hold on to things so tightly that they weigh us down. Buddhism teaches us the powerful practice of letting go, which is about releasing attachments to desires, expectations, and even who we think we are. It's about surrendering to the flow of life with openness and peace. Here's how letting go connects to non-forcing things. Letting go of good and bad. Letting go means releasing attachment to both the good stuff and the bad stuff in life. It's about letting go of desires, expectations, and preferences and accepting things as they are without clinging or resisting. Releasing control. Letting go involves surrendering the illusion that we can control everything. Life has a way of unfolding on its own terms. It's about trusting the natural flow of events and allowing things to happen without forcing or manipulating outcomes. Finding inner freedom. Letting go cultivates detachment, a sense of inner freedom and independence from external things. It's about finding happiness and contentment within ourselves rather than chasing after it from outside sources. Embracing change, letting go, is rooted in accepting impermanence. Everything changes, nothing stays the same forever. It's about embracing the fleeting nature of life and letting go of attachments to fixed outcomes or who we think we should be. Finding true peace, letting go, leads to liberation, freedom from the cycle of craving, clinging, and suffering. It's about experiencing the profound peace and joy that comes from releasing the burden of attachment and embracing the present moment with openness and acceptance. Here's how to cultivate letting go. Be mindful. Mindfulness practice allows you to observe your attachments clearly and without judgment. With this awareness, it becomes easier to let go. Contemplate impermanence. Reflect deeply on the nature of attachment and impermanence through meditation and contemplation. This can help you develop insight into the true nature of reality. Practice non-attachment. Engage in practices that cultivate non-attachment, like generosity, forgiveness, and loving kindness. These loosen the grip of self-centeredness and open your heart to greater compassion and connection. Trust the process. Cultivate trust in the wisdom of life and the teachings of the Buddha. Surrender to the process of awakening with faith and confidence. By cultivating letting go, you choose to release the grip of attachment and surrender to the flow of life with openness and equanimity. Letting go is the pathway to greater freedom, peace, and happiness. It allows you to live with greater ease and joy and respond to life with wisdom and compassion. The deeper your practice of letting go, the closer you get to profound transformation and liberation from suffering. Lesson 18. Finding joy in simplicity. Life can get cluttered, right? We chase after things thinking they'll make us happy. But Buddhism teaches us a beautiful concept called simplicity. It's about finding contentment and peace by appreciating what you have now rather than chasing after more stuff or achievements. Here's how simplicity connects to non-forcing things. Contentment is key. Simplicity involves being content with what you have, finding joy and fulfillment in the present moment rather than constantly needing more or striving for external validation. It's about appreciating the simple pleasures in life and feeling grateful for the good things you already have. Less is more. Simplicity means letting go of excess and living with just what you truly need to be happy and healthy. It's about decluttering your life, both physically and mentally. Focus on what truly matters and let go of possessions or distractions that weigh you down. Inner peace through simplicity. Simplicity leads to inner peace, the calm and steady mind that comes from letting go of desires and attachments. It's about finding freedom in living simply, experiencing a sense of spaciousness and clarity in your life. Living in harmony. Simplicity honors the interconnectedness of all beings, recognizing that your actions have an impact on the world around you. It's about living in harmony with nature, treading lightly on the earth, minimizing your ecological footprint, and reducing harm to others. Savoring the present. Simplicity involves fully embracing the present moment, finding joy and beauty in the here and now. It's about letting go of regrets about the past and worries about the future, savoring the richness of life as it unfolds moment by moment. Here's how to cultivate simplicity. Be mindful of what you consume. Pay attention to your consumption habits. Make choices that align with your values of simplicity, sustainability, and ethical responsibility. Create space to breathe. Set aside regular time for rest and rejuvenation. Simplify your schedule to create space for reflection, creativity, and connection with loved ones. Gratitude is a gift. Cultivate gratitude for the simple blessings in life. Appreciate the abundance that surrounds you, whether it's nature, relationships, or everyday experiences. Less stuff, more joy. Explore practices like minimalism, frugality, and intentional living. Reduce clutter, busyness, and distractions to create more space for what truly matters. By cultivating simplicity, you choose to let go of the need to constantly strive for more. Instead, you find contentment and fulfillment in the present moment. Simplicity is the pathway to greater peace, happiness, and freedom. It allows you to live with greater ease and joy and respond to life with wisdom and compassion. The deeper your practice of simplicity, the closer you get to profound transformation and liberation from suffering. Lesson 19. Going with the flow, flexibility in Buddhism. Life throws curveballs, doesn't it? Just when you think you have it figured out, things change. Buddhism teaches us a powerful concept called flexibility, which is about adapting to change with an open mind, resilience, and a willingness to bend without breaking. It's about flowing with life's ever-changing currents and responding skillfully to whatever comes your way. Here's how flexibility connects to non-forcing things, rolling with the punches. Flexibility involves being adaptable and open-minded. It's about letting go of rigid expectations and plans when necessary. Embrace the impermanent nature of life and respond to changing circumstances with creativity and resilience. Finding peace in change. Flexibility involves maintaining equanimity in the face of change. Don't cling to the past or grasp for the future. Find a sense of stability and peace even when things are in flux. Remember, all things change. Thinking outside the box. Flexibility empowers you to approach challenges with creativity and resourcefulness. Find innovative solutions to obstacles and setbacks. It's about thinking outside the box and seeing possibilities where others see limitations. Letting go of control. Flexibility involves letting go of the need to control everything. Trust the natural intelligence and wisdom of life itself. Surrender to the flow of life and allow things to unfold organically without resistance or interference. Embracing the unknown. Flexibility involves embracing uncertainty as a natural part of life and even an opportunity for growth and discovery. Step into the unknown with courage and curiosity rather than fear or resistance. Here's how to cultivate flexibility. Be mindful. Mindfulness practice allows you to observe your reactions to change with awareness and non-judgment. This allows you to respond with greater flexibility and adaptability. Build resilience. Build resilience through practices like meditation, yoga, or martial arts. These practices strengthen your capacity to bounce back from adversity and stay grounded during change. Embrace diversity. Embrace diversity and the beauty of different perspectives. There's more than one path to truth and liberation. Be open to learning from others and expanding your horizons. Welcome feedback. Seek feedback from others and be open to constructive criticism and new ideas. Don't be afraid to grow and learn. By cultivating flexibility, you choose to embrace the dynamic and ever-changing nature of life rather than trying to force things or control situations. Flexibility is the key to greater resilience, creativity, and freedom. It allows you to navigate life's challenges with grace and ease. The deeper your practice of flexibility, the closer you get to profound transformation and liberation from suffering. Lesson 20. The power of gratitude. Life can be tough, right? But sometimes we forget to appreciate the good stuff. Buddhism teaches us a beautiful practice called gratitude, which is about recognizing and cherishing the blessings and opportunities in our lives, no matter what's going on. It's about realizing how interconnected we all are and appreciating the richness of life itself. Here's how gratitude connects to non-forcing things, a heart full of appreciation. Gratitude involves cultivating appreciation for the gifts and blessings around us. It could be the simple joys of everyday life, or the deep connection we share with all living things. It's about recognizing the beauty and wonder of existence and embracing life with an open and grateful heart. Shifting your focus. Gratitude counters feelings of entitlement and dissatisfaction. Instead of focusing on what we lack, we shift our focus to the abundance we already have. It's about cultivating a sense of having enough rather than constantly striving for more or comparing ourselves to others. Deeper connections. Gratitude fosters connection and intimacy with ourselves, others, and the world around us. It's about recognizing and appreciating the kindness, generosity, and support we receive from others and expressing our gratitude with our words and actions. Finding the silver lining. Gratitude transforms our perception of life. It allows us to see challenges and difficulties as opportunities to learn and grow. It's about reframing our experiences through the lens of gratitude, finding meaning and purpose even in tough times. Gratitude and joy. Gratitude is closely linked to cultivating joy, the deep sense of well-being and happiness that comes from appreciating the good things in life. It's about savoring the present moment and finding joy in the simple pleasures. Here's how to cultivate gratitude. Reflect daily. Take time each day to reflect on the blessings and opportunities in your life. Express your gratitude for them, big or small. Gratitude journaling. Keep a gratitude journal where you write down things you're grateful for. This helps cultivate a habit of gratitude and appreciation. Acts of kindness. Do kind things for others and express gratitude for the opportunity to make a positive impact in the world. Be mindful. Cultivate mindfulness in your daily activities. This allows you to fully appreciate the richness and beauty of each moment. By cultivating gratitude, you choose to embrace life with appreciation and an open heart, rather than striving for more or resisting what is. Gratitude is the pathway to greater joy, connection, and well-being. It allows you to live with greater ease and happiness and respond to life with wisdom and compassion. The deeper your practice of gratitude, the closer you get to profound transformation and liberation from suffering. The journey continues. Life can be a whirlwind, can't it? We chase after things, get caught up in worries, and sometimes lose sight of the simple joys. But Buddhism offers a beautiful path to inner peace and true happiness. Through these 20 lessons, we've explored powerful practices like patience, letting go, and flexibility. We've learned to navigate life's ups and downs with grace and equanimity, accepting what is and responding with wisdom. By cultivating gratitude and embracing simplicity, we've discovered the richness that already exists in the present moment. Letting go of the need for more has allowed us to find contentment and a deep sense of joy. This journey of exploration is far from over. Join us as we continue to learn and grow together. Share your thoughts, subscribe to our channel, and embark on a transformative path inspired by the Buddha's timeless wisdom. Together, let's cultivate acceptance, compassion, mindfulness, and gratitude. Let's enrich our lives and create a world filled with more peace, understanding, and joy.